I should probably use that for the slate, but I'm not going to. I'm Taylor.
I'm Melissa.
And this is our Cinema Romance. This is a channel that we have decided to start. we're gonna talk about movies.
We like movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little bit of background. We will cover maybe the romance part briefly.
Okay.
Met in 2000.
Is that right?
Yes. Got married in 2001.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Dated for 6 months and engaged for a year.
I know, he was fast.
I was fast. When you know, you know.
And we both like movies, which is where you got the romance part. So the funny thing, we both love movies, but we came to movies from like a different background. I should say I was a film theory major, and I went to a state college, and Taylor was a production major, and he went to USC. So his college was more fancy than mine.
And we are both here now. So do with that what you will. To help us get started, a question that I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to know: what is your favorite movie?
Yes.
So we thought we would talk about that. Preface this by saying, obviously it's really hard to narrow down, like, of all the movies that we've seen, there is exactly one. But it's good to have an answer to this question. And the answer that I will usually give to this question, what is your favorite movie? My favorite movie is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, both of us, a lot of our cinematic touch points happened in the 1980s. Not to date us more than is necessary, but that is when we sort of came of age in movies.
I'd like to say that age is a construct.
It was a good time, I think, to come of age. I mean, obviously, everybody has their, favorite decade. The 70s were probably, some of the most important movies being produced within the studio system. The 80s are best understood as the Spielberg-Lucas era. And there are 3 movies that define the Spielberg-Lucas era. One of them is Jaws. Jaws was the first summer movie. Star Wars, of course, merchandising, and just the cultural phenomenon that was Star Wars and that Star Wars continues to be. And then Raiders of the Lost Ark. And what Raiders of the Lost Ark contributes, in my opinion, to the sort of trifecta of, Spielberg-Lucas are set pieces. When Raiders of the Lost Ark was originally released, it was a one-off. It was just a lark. They were trying to recapture that feeling of the serials that they used to show.
I remember reading, Tintin that they put out all those years later. Like, I know Spielberg said that was like something that he thought of when he was making Raiders. But coming from, I don't know if there were shorts before movies. We're not that old.
Where you would go back. We should ask my parents. It was supposed to just be, just fun, remember back when there used to be these movies with the cliffhangers? Except it ended up revolutionizing movies. It's so good, and we haven't abandoned the concept of the set piece yet. So that is sort of the significance of Raiders. But why is Raiders one of my favorite movies? I did see it when I was very young. It was probably 7 or 8. I would have to double check. It was 81, so whatever the math. At that age, I was just so overwhelmed by the action and the excitement in that movie. But when I watch it again, and I watch Raiders, it's not a movie that I just turn on casually, because once I turn it on, I end up paying attention to it. And the things that interest me about Raiders now, because in my child's mind, and in the mind of a lot of people, this is a swashbuckling movie about this stalwart hero. But when you really start to pay attention to it, especially in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones is not necessarily the most heroic guy. As often as not, he chooses the Ark of the Covenant over Marion. It's not like you might want to think that there's a love triangle between Indy, Marion, and Belloc, but that leaves out the Ark, because the Ark is the character, and it is a character that Indiana Jones is most in love with, in my opinion.
I see what you're saying, because Belloc definitely is into Marion. Marion never shows a shred of interest in Belloc, though. Let's just be clear on that. There cannot be a love triangle unless there is mutual interest in things like that. No. Marion's her own force in that movie.
And in addition to Indiana not always behaving like a hero, you have Marion. Marion kills more people in Raiders of the Lost Ark than Indiana Jones does. She ends up in the gun.
The turret? Is it the turret? Is that what it's called?
That thing where they fire.
Yeah.
She's literally killing Nazis by the truckload. By the truckload.
My girl.
And that's interesting to me. It's just interesting that you have this movie that is meant to be this callback to, an earlier
time.
But you've got these, the leading man and the leading woman, who are subverting the archetypes to some extent. And the last thing that I want to talk about briefly, although I do want to wrap it up with Raiders, is the climax, of course. Another thing that sets Raiders apart. The hero he's not the one who saves the day. It's not even an entity. God himself appears, frees the heroes, and kills all the bad guys. He's the only one who has a higher body count than Marion in the movie. And then it ends. So those are among the reasons that Raiders still holds a special place in my heart. Just the subtle ways that it subverts the stereotypes, the cliches, without ever doing so overtly or in some meta way. It's just there if you look for it, and I find it fascinating. But we would need to find out what your favorite movie is.
Oh, yes, my favorite movie. So I had a bit of trouble with this question, of course. However, you pointed out very well that while I refuse sometimes to pick a favorite movie, I will say movies are in my top 10. And there is one movie that I always say is in my top 3. And that's the movie that I will talk about today. And that movie is Blade Runner. And not, I will be talking about the director's cut specifically, even though I have seen all of them. So, or is it the final cut now? I guess there's a director's cut and the final cut. So I will talk about the final cut, which is very similar to the director's cut. I just noticed a couple inconsistencies. Blade Runner is one of those movies that whenever it would play in a theater, I would do whatever I could to go see it. Because you cannot separate that movie from its visuals. I mean, its visuals are, you talk about, the 80s being the Spielberg Lucas era for sure, but if you choose one movie that basically decided what the future looks like, that movie is Blade Runner.
I honestly the only current franchises, science fiction franchises that I can think of that don't look like Blade Runner are Star Wars and Star Trek. They were pre-existing franchises.
Yeah. Every time I hear that the Vangelis music, and it comes in, and you see what's interesting in Blade Runner is that it's not the protagonist that you feel most, you're following him, but I don't think that is not the heart. He's not the heart of the movie.
No.
It's the replicants, right? It's watching Pris with Roy, and like when they see each other again, when they're at Sebastian's house, their reaction together is just so desperate. Like, these people have been through it together, you know, like they truly love each other, and they're, you know, robots. Like, these are, but they have these emotions that we can see, and this kind of camaraderie and desperation that I feel like is not really seen in the other characters.
And of course, the idea of more human than human
Yeah.
is not something that Blade Runner invented.
Yeah.
But I agree, Deckard is one of the least interesting characters. The only thing, or the most interesting thing about Deckard is the possibility that he is not human.
Yeah.
But everything that you think, the desperation, I mean, these are people who are truly living like there is no tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because for them,
they're only living, their lifespan is set to end at a certain time, and they know when their lifespan is going to end. Or they don't. I think they have an idea.
They have an idea. That's what they're
don't know
trying to find out the exact.
No, because that's, again,
Tyrell. Yes.
Right? So there's Tyrell Corporation, which that...
Not an ivory tower,
but that building
massive.
is... Yeah, that massive building. And you gotta think this guy is like the weirdo Elon Musk of back then. Yeah. of that
potential
yes,
future.
The potential future. Like, right? Because he's like wearing a bathrobe in bed and just like hanging out. And the kind of casual cruelty of talking about Rachel, like, oh, well, yeah, she doesn't even know she's a replicant, you know, just, and he says it so casually.
I hadn't even, you know, that's a very, very good point. He is just so dismissive of her as something that exists.
She took this test, you know, she thinks she's taking this test just because her boss wants her to prove something, and she doesn't know why she's taking it. And when she goes to see Deckard later, when she starts putting pieces together, they fired her. She said that like she can't go.
Right.
Yeah. So he just destroyed her entire existence.
At this point, I do want to just cut in and say, if you haven't seen Blade Runner, you decide to watch it. The scene when she returns to Deckard was problematic at the time. It's only more problematic now.
You know, we have a daughter. I could imagine if we watched this movie with her, we would lose her during the love scene, which would be a damn shame because it is such a freaking amazing movie, and there's so much to appreciate and love about it. Again, it's not.
And the climax.
I've chosen it as my favorite.
Roy.
Yeah. No, with the dove, like like it's one of those beautiful like images of, you know, however many, over 100 years of film, right? And just what a performance, like by Rutger Hauer.
Good Lord,
like,
yes.
That
Admittedly,
in that.
I've never seen any of his Dutch work with Verhoeven. What I have, like, nothing comes close. He is just. I mean, I said Marion was a force of nature. Yeah. My God, Roy Batty. Yeah. I mean, he looks so beautiful with the white hair and that porcelain white skin, and his like body looks like, you know, the David.
Yeah.
And the grace with which he moves.
No, I know. He's quite something.
Oh.
I remember reading an article on Anne Rice, and when she wrote Lestat, she thought of him for Lestat.
I did
That's
not
what
know
she pictured
that.
was Roy Batty, which
was
very funny to me.
I'm gonna see what I can do to cut all this together. We are making do with the different equipment that we have available to us.
Figuring it out.
Yes. But if we can get this to work, hoping to put a video up maybe every week.
Yeah.
So if you like this, please do join us next time.
Yeah. Do that little. I think there's a subscribe. People have to
Okay,
subscribe.
you don't play coy, Melissa. We've watched enough YouTube. Yes, there's a subscribe button.
This new YouTube thing. It's so
No,
new and
yeah,
exciting.
exactly. But you know, I do think that there's a chance that this YouTube thing might catch on.
Yeah.
So
It
you know,
seems to have a future.
we want to get in early.
Ground floor.
Exactly. But with that, I'm Taylor,
I'm Melissa.
and this has been our Cinema Romance.
Bye.